Today I'm going to cover a prickly subject. The native thistles, which are among the most important plants for pollinators and wildlife in eastern North America. Yet many people consider them nothing more than weeds. Today we're going to look at why native thistles deserve a place in our wild spaces and landscapes, and how to tell them apart from the invasive species that give them a bad reputation, often leading to all thistles being lumped together as noxious weeds. More on this in a bit, but first, let's look at the value of native thistles to pollinators and wildlife. The native thistles in the genus Cirsium, there are around 15 of them in eastern North America, are super important to a multitude of insect species and rank in the top 10 keystone genera of flowering plants in North America. A keystone plant genus is one that supports an unusually large number of insects relative to its abundance. They are vital to the survival of at least 15 species of pollen specialist bees, including the aptly named thistle longhorn bee, Melisodes desponsus. The large pinkish to purple blooms are also a huge draw for other pollinators, especially butterflies, including the monarch, and bumblebees and various other native bee species. It is used as a caterpillar host plant by at least 25 species of Lepidoptera, including the distinctively marked and spiky caterpillars of the awesome painted lady butterfly and the small, super fuzzy, ghostly caterpillars of the increasingly rare and beautiful swamp meadowlark, which are specialist feeders and only eat the foliage of native thistles. The value of native thistles goes well beyond insects though, as the small seeds they produce are highly sought by a variety of seed-eating birds, including the stunning indigo bunting, white-throated sparrows, mourning doves, and of course the bird best known for feeding on thistle seeds, the American goldfinch. The foliage and flowers of native thistles are also browsed by deer and elk. They find them palatable despite being prickly, as do many species of livestock, which can lead to some issues I'll cover when we get to the invasive thistles. The soft, fluffy pappus, the white fluff on the seeds, is used by goldfinches to line their nest. Thistles also provide nesting sites for some much smaller creatures. Native thistles have stout, hollow stems that stay standing long after the plants die back in the fall, often well into the following spring and summer. These hollow stems are used as nesting sites by several species of stem-nesting native bees. There is no denying native thistles are vital to functioning native plant communities and the pollinators and wildlife that depend on them. If you love learning about native plants for pollen specialist bees, then buzz on over and pollinate that like button. So, if native thistles are so great for pollinators, especially pollen specialist bees, and wildlife, birds in particular, why is there so much hate for them? Here in the eastern U.S., that hate is mostly generated by 3 non-native, highly invasive Cirsium species that can be found across much of eastern North America. These invasive thistles are the creeping or Canada thistle, Cirsium arvense, the bull thistle, Cirsium vulgare, and the marsh thistle, Cirsium palustre. Unlike our native species, these thistles aren't kept in check by the biotic and climatic factors that keep our native thistles from overwhelming the native plant communities they exist in. Without these natural population limiting factors, the invasive species spread quickly and often form huge monoculture patches which overwhelm and displace the native species that should be growing there. When blooming, it is easy to spot these patches of invasive thistles, as they often appear as a nearly solid field of clustered purple blooms sitting atop tall, spine-covered stalks. As you can imagine, these invasive thistles are not just a problem when it comes to wild areas. They are also a huge problem in agriculture, both in row crops and especially in pasture, which has led many states to list them as noxious weeds, as they should be. Unfortunately, there are states, Iowa is a good example, where all Cirsium species have been lumped together as noxious weeds. I think most of us see the problem with that. Native thistles are also often impacted by invasive thistle control efforts, both chemical and biological, as some of the biological control methods employed to eradicate the invasives often cross over to the native species and kill them as well. In areas grazed by livestock, the higher palatability of native thistles often results in livestock selectively grazing them out of a pasture, leaving only the less palatable invasive thistles. Donkeys will eat invasive thistles, but their impact on them varies greatly area to area, and even donkey to donkey. Same goes for goats. Controlling invasive thistles, especially in areas with large infestations, can be a daunting task. If you would like to see a video detailing invasive thistle control, let me know down in the comments. Let's say you have a field and there's some random thistles growing in it. How do you tell if they're native or invasive? In general, the native thistles have a green upper leaf surface. The lower leaf surface is whitish and woolly or hairy. The invasive thistles have bright green leaves top and bottom, and they may or may not be hairy depending on the species. The widespread native swamp thistle, Cirsium muticum, is an exception to this and has whitish fuzzy lower leaf surfaces when young, but they become smooth and green as the plant matures. The native thistles also tend to have large showy blooms that appear singly on the stems, while the invasive bull, Canada, and marsh thistles have smaller blooms that form in clusters. These traits are helpful guidelines, but always use multiple traits when identifying thistles, or any plant for that matter. Unfortunately, many of our native thistle species have become far less common due to habitat loss and impacts from invasive thistle control programs. There are several native thistles that behave well in garden settings, and I encourage you to plant some if you don't mind the prickles and if they fit in with your garden goals. Not all native thistle species are easily found at native plant nurseries or seed suppliers. The best way to find out what species are native to your specific location and what can be found for sale locally is to contact your state native plant society. Your state native plant society is a great resource when it comes to tracking down local sources of plants and seeds. I would also encourage everyone to only plant thistle species that are native to your location, as they do have wind-borne, light seeds that can easily travel and escape cultivation. We have enough problems with the invasive thistles from other continents, and we don't want to create problems by moving North American species to parts of North America they are not native to. There are many interesting species of native thistles, and if you would like to see a video deep diving into them, let me know in the comments. The idea of using native keystone plants in home landscaping was brought to the public by Doug Tallamy in his book, Bringing Nature Home. This book is considered a must-read in the native plant world, and if you haven't read it, I encourage you to do so. I'll put links in the description to both the print and Kindle versions of the book, and I will also put a link where you can listen to the audiobook for free with an Audible free trial sign-up. This is an affiliate link, which simply means we get a small commission from the seller, which goes to help support the channel. No extra cost to you. Thistles are often thought of as useless weeds, but our native thistles are pollinator powerhouses that also feed a multitude of birds, including some backyard favorites like the American goldfinch, and are considered keystone species in eastern North America, and rank in the top 10 keystone genera when it comes to caterpillar host plants and pollen specialist bee support. I have made a video where I cover the other 9 keystone genera, which you can check out right here, and be sure to take some time and enjoy nature in your backyard.